はい、皆さん、こんにちは。米国特許セミナーパテントターミノロジーです。このシリーズでは、特許用語、表現などをできるだけわかりやすく解説しています。講師は、米国特許弁護士であるブライアン・エプスタインさんです。今回は、クレームディファレンシエーション、クレーム相違というものについて見ていきたいと思います。では、早速解説いただきます。Okay, Brian さん、please share your thoughts on claim differentiation.
Sure. So let's begin by considering a claim that reads, an apparatus comprising a network interface that communicates via a wireless channel. This is a very broad claim. And so we have some questions about what is the coverage of this claim. So does claim 1 cover the wireless channel being secure? Does claim 1 cover the wireless channel being insecure? Does claim 1 cover the network interface being 5G? And so the issue is that claim 1 is silent on all three issues, right? Certainly nothing in claim 1 prohibits this coverage. For example, claim 1 doesn't say the wireless channel is only secure or the network interface is only 3G, right? The claim could cover all three of these. But what if a competitor wants to narrow claim 1 to avoid infringement, right? Common argument during litigation. And in that case, what if the specification only describes an implementation with a 5G interface, although the invention does not require a 5G interface, right? It just was drafted with one, maybe the budget was low, but it doesn't require this 5G interface. How does a court decide whether or not claim 1 covers or is limited to the network interface being 5G? And so one guide is claim differentiation.
はい、ここでは、クレームディファレンシエーションのイントロということで、クレームディファレンシエーションが使われる背景についての解説でした。クレームのこの例には、無線チャンネルとだけ記載されているところ、これが、セキュアチャンネルや 5G を含むかどうかが、例えば問題となったときに、クレームディファレンシエーションという考え方が使われることがあるということでした。詳しくは次から見ていきたいと思います。Okay, Brian さん、next slide, please.
Sure. I think I accidentally muted you there for a second. I apologize. It's fine now. It's just for a length of a cough. So the claim differentiation basics are, claim differentiation is clearest in the context of an independent claim and a dependent claim. And the reason for that is that under 35 USC 112D, a claim in dependent form shall specify a further limitation of the subject matter claimed. Okay? So let's consider claim 1 now with claim 2. Dependent claim 2 recites the apparatus of claim 1 wherein the wireless channel is a secure channel. So now we know claim 1 covers two implementations, right? Claim 1 must be broad enough to include the subject matter of claim 2. Right, that's 35 USC section 112D. So claim 1 must cover an implementation where the wireless channel is secure. However, or further, claim 1 also has to cover the case where claim 2 does not apply. And so claim 1 must be broad enough that it covers the case in which the wireless channel is not secure, right? The reason is that claim 2 must further limit claim 1, and if the scope of claim 1 and 2 is identical, then 2 does not limit claim 1. And so we know that claim 1 must be broad enough for both situations. However, we still don't have an answer about the network interface being 5G, right? So we have a stronger position with regard to whether claim 1 covers a secure channel or not. But we have a weaker position regarding whether claim 1 covers the 5G network interface. And this kind of situation is typical in enforcement, right? You're going to have different facts, you're going to have different concerns about the coverage of the scope, and you're trying to identify what the patentee's best argument is to protect their intellectual property.
はい、ここまでをまとめますと、クレームディファレンシエーションというのは、独立クレームと従属クレームとの関係で語られることが多いということでした。でここでは従属クレーム2が加わることによって、クレーム1がセキュアチャンネルの場合とセキュアチャンネルでない場合のこの2つのことが明らかになったということでした。で一方で、この 5G の場合については、ここでは弱い立場のままであるということでした。はい、次に行きたいと思います。Next slide, please.
So this doctrine creates only a presumption. Okay, this is not some absolute rule. And so it's possible for competitors to avoid it. Right, and so there's some limits to it. So one limit is that you cannot broaden the claims beyond their correct scope. Of course, we don't know the correct scope before the litigation, but that is a limit that will be applied, right? We can't say, well, the correct scope is one thing, and then by the way, we have differentiated claims, and so it's even broader. The second limit is that this can be overcome by, your specification, particular things that might be said in the specification, and or any prosecution estoppel that arose.
はい、ここでは、クレームディファレンシエーションは推定でしかなく、絶対的なルールではないという判例が紹介されました。また、クレームディファレンシエーションには、今言ったように2つの限界があるということでした。はい、次に行きたいと思います。Okay, Brian さん、go ahead, please.
Sure. So, claim differentiation applies to independent claims as well as dependent claims, right? So, we're not limited only to whether or not we have differentiated dependent claims, but we can also have differentiation among different independent claims. And so again, there's limits on this. So the one that's unique to independent claims, or somewhat unique, is that two claims with different terminology can define the exact same subject matter. So even if your independent claims are completely different, a court could still find that they cover the exact same subject matter. In addition, the idea from the previous slide that a claim cannot be broadened beyond its correct scope also applies in the case of independent claims.
はい、ここではですね、クレームディファレンシエーションに関する別の判例が紹介されました。でクレームディファレンシエーションは、従属クレームだけでなく、独立クレームにも適用されうるということ。また、異なる用語を使用したこの2つのクレームがあった場合、でも、このカバーする主題が全く同じ場合があるという判例でした。はい、では次に行きたいと思います。Next slide, please.
Okay, so how do we introduce claim differentiation among our independent claims? So, as you know, in the US, applicants can file 3 independent claims without additional governmental fees, right? This is different than Japan, where the JPO charges by the claim. In the United States, every patent application can have 3 independent claims without additional governmental fees. And so what we want to try to differentiate our independent claims by more than statutory class only, right? We don't want our method claim to use the exact same words in the body as our computer readable medium claim. We don't want to our apparatus claim to use very similar terminology. Instead of saying determining in a method claim, now it's processor configured to determine. We don't want it to be so similar. And so there's this related topic here of claim diversity. Okay, claim diversity considers the ability of different claims to capture an infringer, right? We have 3 totally different independent claims. It's a diverse group of claims, and so we can select the one that a competitor is practicing. In contrast, claim differentiation, our topic today, considers the meaning of the diverse claims, right? We're getting additional options beyond just having diverse claims. We can say that they actually mean different things because they use different words. And so this is a really good chance to use different claiming strategies.
はい、ここではですね、クレームディファレンシエーションを実際に使う際のポイントについて解説しました。独立クレームは3つまで、追加費用なしで使えるということ。そして単にこのクレーム同士のですね、この法定クラスを変えるだけでなく、表現も変えてみるということ。そして、クレームディファレンシエーションによって、クレーム戦略にバリエーションを持たせることができるということでした。はい、では次に行きたいと思います。Go ahead, please.
Sure. So one strategy is to claim elements with different grammar, right? I frequently receive questions like, hey, Brian, is it better to say to maru, to determine, or a unit for determining, or a unit that determines? And so because we're looking for different phrasing, we can use it for each of these, or we can use different ones in the same claim. If you ask a U.S. attorney, we'll always tell you, it depends, or maybe you want it narrow, or maybe you want it broad. This is a good chance to use them all, because now you can say that this one claim is narrow and this one's broader because it doesn't use the same language. We can use the phrase is determined, value is determined, or the value being determined, or the value determined based on. We can swap the order of our direct and indirect objects. For example, sends data to a device can become sends a device data. Those two probably are going to be similar in most cases, but in context, they might be different. And again, I just want to stress, there are 2 different concepts, right? The first concept, claim diversity, concerns a diverse set of claims, right? Each claim is different, so the patentee can choose which one the competitor is believed to infringe. Our topic tonight, claim differentiation, concerns how a court should interpret those different claims. Okay, so for example, maybe claim 1 recites is determined. All right, and independent claim 2 recites the phrase being determined. And now the patentee can argue claim 1 is broader than claim 2 because claim 1 does not use the narrow phrase being determined, right? This is claim 2. This is really narrow because it requires active performance of the determination. Claim 1's different. It doesn't use that phrase. Claim 1 is broader. And so, maybe now we can capture the infringing device. But we don't know that's the situation, right? Maybe on the other hand, claim 2 is sufficiently broad, right? It's for whatever reason, we can argue that being determined still captures the infringing device. But we're trying to avoid a validity challenge, right? Now we can argue that claim 2 is narrower than claim 1 because claim 2 does not use the broader phrase is determined, right? We could say well, this is our broad claim, and we chose this narrower meaning here. And so therefore, we don't do what the prior art does, and the claim is not invalid. Maybe claim 1 is invalid because it has this broad phrase, but claim 2 is valid because it uses this narrow phrase. And of course, we can do this all day. We can claim elements in different manners, right? We can use the same name as or a different name from the specification, right? We can have an image characterization module in the specification, and maybe that's the way we present it in one of our independent claims, or maybe we say a characterizing unit or something so that we can say that, well, we didn't claim it the same way as described in our specification. It doesn't have the same limitations. Maybe one of our claims uses a structural name, like a processor. Maybe the same independent claim or a different independent claim or a dependent claim uses means plus function language, such as means for characterizing. And again, we don't know what we'll need from these claims, right? We don't know if we'll want narrow language to avoid a validity challenge, or broad language to capture an infringer. Generally we want it to be broad, of course. We want to be able to claim relationships in different manners, right? I receive a lot of questions about this condition precedent issue, where claims recite things like, if the processor determines, a threshold is exceeded. In this case, sometimes the examiner doesn't give it patentable weight. Maybe a court won't give it substantial weight in terms of a validity challenge. And we can just claim it differently in other claims, right? Maybe it's broad and we want it broad. Maybe a different claim says, a more structural phrasing, like in response to a determination, or it's one that focuses only on the timing, right, after a determination. So, we have all of these different options available, and we should have claims that use different language in this manner.
はい、ここではですね、クレームディファレンシエーションの具体的な例を、紹介しました。to を for に変えたり、is を being に変えたりといった、機能的表現とか、あとはですね、クレーム要素におけるこのクレーム要素の名前を、バリエーションを持たせるという、例と、あとはですね、条件節やタイミングといった、クレーム内の関係を示す表現におけるクレームディファレンシエーションの例を紹介しました。はい、では次に行きたいと思います。Okay, Brian, next slide, please.
Sure. So there are some caveats to doing all this, okay? First, we don't know which features might be allowable, so some differentiation might disappear during prosecution, right? From the previous slide, maybe the examiner says, look, I really need you to say the phrase in response to the phrase, after the processor determines is too broad. Please use the phrase, in response to. That's not strange, right? That might happen, and that's not something we want to fight our examiner on. So it's possible that this will go away over time, and that's okay. It depends on the particular facts, right? Maybe the claim is narrower in other ways, and it's still allowable. But the most important thing here is that amendments must be applied to each independent claim carefully, and do not merely copy and paste your amendments from one independent claim to a differentiated independent claim. And I really cannot stress this last point enough. U.S. attorneys make this mistake all the time. And examiners often fail to catch this error. So it's possible to ruin your entire patent if you're not careful here. Okay. All patentees would prefer a narrow claim or narrow patent without claim differentiation to a patent with indefinite but differentiated claims, right? If you've got this, phrase that from claim 1 that doesn't really make sense in the context of independent claim 8, that might be indefinite, and now you've ruined claim 8. And so as a result, many applicants would be better suited to not pursue claim differentiation. It's going to come down to issues like attention to detail. Attention to detail often results in attorneys spending more time, and attorneys spending more time often results in higher fees. And if you're an applicant that's really concerned about cost, and not so concerned about, these more sophisticated claiming strategies, maybe you don't want to do this, right? Maybe the risk is too high that, we're only giving our attorneys a couple of hours to do an amendment, and they're likely to copy and paste, or, maybe the instructions are likely to be suggest copying and pasting, and people don't have the time to very carefully amend your independent claims to make sure that, the phrasing is the phrasing of the amendment reflects the actual differentiated phrasing in the claim. And I'm telling you, U.S. attorneys make this mistake all the time. I've seen it in litigated patents. I've seen it in successfully litigated patents. I've seen it in unsuccessfully litigated patents. It's a very, very common mistake, and applicants would be well suited to consider whether or not they want this as part of their claiming strategy.
はい、ここではクレームディファレンシエーションに関する注意点についての解説でした。で、どの特徴が強化されるかというのがわからないため、クレームディファレンシエーションいくつかは消えてしまう可能性があるということ。そして特に重要な点として、このクレームディファレンシエーションがなされたクレームを補正する際にですね、似ている補正、似ているクレームであったとしても、細かくバリエーションを持たせているため、単にコピー&ペーストをしないように、注意が必要だということでした。では次に行きたいと思います。Go ahead, please.
So what can patent agents do? Right? So because the JPO charges per claim, there might not be an opportunity to consider claim differentiation in the original claim set. However, it's possible to include such claims in an example section of the specification. I think we've discussed it before. It's just this extra portion of the specification at the end that says examples and then lists. Basically, it's claim language. And so there would be a good opportunity to, set a basis for a written description for differentiated U.S. claims. And if you do have the ability to do it, whether it's in the examples section or if it's in the original claim set, I really encourage patent agents to get creative and to take risks. This is before prosecution. We've got all of prosecution to clean it up. If there's an error, we've got an opportunity to, broaden things or narrow things appropriately. And so really what you want, this is a good time to take risks.
はい、ここでは、代理人はどうすべきかについて解説しました。日本ではクレームディファレンシエーションを考慮する余地はないかもしれないんですが、この明細書の、実施形態に記載をすることなどが考えられるということでした。はい、では最後のスライドに行きたいと思います。Next.
So what can translators do? Well, as usual, translators have no control over PCT applications, right? It's supposed to be the same as the original application. Paris applications can be more flexible, so, this is a strategy more applicable there, potentially more applicable there for translators anyway. And so the recommendation is to ask your client about their preferences before introducing new differences to their claims, right? I think many clients would probably say, maybe not, maybe many, will say, please don't do it. We're asking you as a translator to just translate the application. The person that maybe our patent engineer that drafted this application, this differentiation should be done by them. But maybe not, right? Maybe there are some clients that say, look, this is a good point. English is a language with a lot of synonyms. And so it's no problem to just use a little bit of different wording. And, we'll let our U.S. attorney figure out how to move forward with it. And so that's why the recommendation is to ask.
はい、ここでは、翻訳者はどうすべきかについて解説しました。翻訳者、翻訳の自由度という問題があるため、クライアントに、クレームディファレンシエーションに関して、事前に、確認することを勧めるということでした。今回はこれで以上になります。ご質問や扱ってほしいトピックなどがありましたら、YouTube のコメント欄に書いていただくか、スライド最後に記載のメールアドレスまでお気軽にご連絡ください。では本日もありがとうございました。失礼します。
すみません。6月に日本に行きます。どうもよろしくお願いします。
はい。
ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。